on, let's go. Bretton Woods, like, come on.
We are AnCaps.
On the Milton.
Yeah, what's up?
I wanted to say earlier on the thing about him not knowing. On the thing about him not knowing who Milton Friedman is, everybody starts somewhere.
Yeah,
We
no,
shouldn't
I'm sorry.
shame
The
people.
only reason I was gonna just like sit and listen and like soothe my soul with like some economic shit, and then he like didn't know who Milton Friedman was. And I was like, I'm sorry, like what? Okay. You can't not know. It's Milton Friedman.
Okay, but the guy isn't, is not versed in economics, I assume, and that's no crime.
That's fair. That's very fair. I thought that this was. I thought you guys were like talking about economics. That was my fault. I ruined everything. I just like mud stamped in. So
we were starting to. We were just starting to when you got here.
And I ruined it. I'm so sorry. I did.
Yeah.
I just like.
And you're continuing to ruin it.
You know, that guy, I don't know what his name is. I'm playing a game, but that guy kind of came up with, I guess you could call it voluntary minarchism. Basically, the kind of the last step of minarchism before you realize you're an ANCAP. Something that I came up with myself like 12 years ago or something. Where basically you make each citizen's relationship with the government optional, where they can opt out, and if they opt out, they can still like subscribe themselves to the fire department or the garbage disposal or something if they want.
Well, wouldn't that just be? Yeah, I guess it's a relationship to minarchism. There, there's different terms. I mean, I guess terminologically, like I get a little bit squishy when you get to that point. So what would be your personal like how do you define like ANCAP? Like, because I feel like people have different definitions and it's like a very squidgy thing. So like, what's your definition of ANCAP?
I try to make my definitions fit as many people's definitions of things as possible. So I would characterize anarcho-capitalism simply as anarcho, meaning it's anarchy, there is no state, and then capitalism, meaning you have a free enterprise-based market economy based on private property rights.
Sure. Okay. So the question I would usually ask people to kind of like push is like, so how is this different from modern day drug dealing?
I do not at all understand the nature of the question. And I'm both an ANCAP and I was a drug.
Sure, but like the question there would be like, for a lot of drug dealers, like their social privileges don't come from the government. They don't have a subscription to like some of them. Yes, I'm sure like engage in or like live in spaces where they're like drawing from like public systems, like and like the question of scaling, right? But like I think you would start like in a small scale sense in terms of like ownership of like property and like selling things that is like completely unregulated. Like what's your concept of regulation within that ANCAP system?
In an ANCAP society, regulation is handled on the market, and the way it looks, there's a few forms of it. One form is you have court liability. You know, if you're defrauding me, if you claim your product does one thing but it doesn't do that, I can sue you. And then there's also, you have private certification for purposes of marketability. For example, I used to be in the kosher food industry, and there is no federal department of kosher. There's not a government agency that makes kosher. Sure. You have private certifying bodies that sell the service of oversight to the producers in order for the producers to be able to attract the patronage of religious Jews.
This is Turtle World of Warcraft.
But that's not what I'm talking about. Yeah. But I'm talking about, so like you have two issues here. You have small scale and you have large scale. So like on the large scale, what's preventing somebody in your system? And I say this as somebody who like is on your side and like believes what you believe. These are the questions I ask. So what's preventing somebody from putting sawdust in bread? Because if I'm an individual consumer, the cost benefit of like, if I'm suing a bread company for putting, like this is in a modern system or like what it exists as, you sell me bread that has sawdust. I'm an individual person that is now suing a company for putting sawdust in my bread. So what regulations are there? Like what exists in that? Putting glue in my milk and sawdust in my bread. Because now we're going back to 100 years ago of like, you know, Upton Sinclair kind of style bullshit.
Yeah, that would probably be a large class action suit. Unless, of course, the company put on the bread packaging.
Wait. But you say large class action suit. That requires me to bring together, like me as an individual, to bring together people who are willing to bring a class action suit. And that's a class action suit is that's an insane burden to put on the individual consumer. Because no. Hang on. The argument here is like me as an individual consumer. Now, my response is like I don't have any rights in terms like you put sawdust in my bread. You sell me bread that has sawdust in it. And now I'm just fucked because I have to bring together, I have to get sick enough to recognize that there's sawdust in my bread and then bring together enough people who also are either sick or concerned about the sawdust in their bread to bring a class action lawsuit. So how does that work? How does food safety work in the system?
I don't think you would have to do all that yourself. I think you would simply call up a big large firm, a big law firm, I meant to say, and then the law firm. Yes, and then the law firm would be very eager to.
Why would they take my case? Because I'm one person who suspects that there's sawdust in my bread. Why would they take my case?
Well, all they would have to do, they realize that if there is sawdust in the bread, that this is a bread company that's selling to thousands of people and stuff, so this could be a very large suit. They could have a very large piece of profit from. And all they have to do is send that piece of bread to a lab or something to determine if there's sawdust in it, and then boom, now you got them. And so then that law firm is putting out ads along the lines of, if you or a loved one has been diagnosed with mesothelioma, you may be entitled to find it, that kind of thing.
So you're expecting the law firm to just do this gratis, or like who's paying for this? Where's the money coming from? Pay for this law.
The way civil law often works today is on contingency pay. In the case.
Right. The law firm's interests lie with me, the consumer. That's how that works.
No,
me as one person who comes in and says, I suspect that there's sawdust in my bread. And then, or I have to do the work of organizing a group of people to come together. Like, I'm sorry, there's a flaw, there's a snag in this net, man. Like, what?
I think the flaw is in your understanding. The law firm here. The law firm catches wind that there might be sawdust in this particular brand's bread, and then they get.
Miss, can you stop interrupting every 5 seconds, please? You got to let him finish his sentence.
Go ahead.
The law firm catches wind. They hear the slightest of that there might be sawdust in this bread, and then they start getting dollar signs in their eyes, or I should say Bitcoin signs in their eyes, because now they're imagining thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of people who have bought this bread that would now be plaintiffs, and that firm could then take contingency pay upon restitution after the case has been adjudicated. That can be billions and billions of dollars for that law firm potentially. I mean, if it's a big case anyway, or if it's a medium case, it'll be many millions of dollars. Again, we're probably talking about some other currency here. But so law firms do this all the time.
Right, but if I'm one person who comes to them, right, and if I don't have the money, so I show up to what, big law firm TM, and I'm like, hey, I think there is sawdust in my bread. And I'm just me. And I'm like, hey, I want you to go up against a big corporation. You're saying that like law firm will just have like dollar signs in their eyes. Like that's fucking realistic. Right? No, that's not how I would have to get. No, that's not how that works. That's insanely idealistic.
We have this in the real world. You know that, right?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm not sure why you're acting like it's so insane.
Okay.
You have yourself probably seen advertisements that are about the asbestos stuff that say.
So one person, right? So you're saying that one person goes to big law firm and says, "Hey, I think I've been harmed by big company, and therefore you should take on big company. And I don't have the money to pay you that much, but maybe you might win." And you genuinely think, like, have you ever read like Ayn Rand? Like, what do you think is happening here? Like, there's no fucking universe where like one person shows up and is like, my bread sucks. Right. So like one person goes in and is like, my bread is bad and I can like not pay you. And my standards are poor and my children are like eating sawdust bread. So you should take it on. You genuinely believe that the world that we live in right now, I would walk in a door and be like, loaf of bread full of sawdust. And they would be like, oh, we got them. You really think that would happen? Truly, you
I
really
think
think
what
that would
will
happen?
happen, whether it's today or it's Ancapistan, in either case, because we already have this system today, it happens all the time. Not with sawdust and bread specifically, but lots of similar comparable things. The fact that you're just one person makes no difference whatsoever. The law firm, what they're interested in is they catch wind that this big company that's selling bread to thousands or millions of people, this big company is putting sawdust in that bread. That means there are thousands or millions.
Hang on, but stop. Hang on. The reason that they say that is because we have federal legislation that like makes that like construct. Like this is where I get confused, because in an ANCAP system, there is no federal government that says that you can't do that. So what government are you proposing that exists? That actually, and again, like I'm saying this, I'm being devil's advocate because I'm genuinely on your side here. Like, but like, how do you structure that? Because if there are no federal regulations about sawdust and bread, then what's the problem?
Do I need to outline the basics of how an ANCAP legal system works?
Who does? Right. Who does? Who does that? Where does that come from?
Okay. So you as an individual are interested in having you and your property indemnified and protected, as is essentially everybody else.
I would like bread with no sawdust. Yep.
No, that's a slightly different thing. Let me just explain how the basic mechanism of the legal system works, and that'll make sense out of tort law. So you want to be protected, and you want you and your stuff to be indemnified and protected. So you subscribe yourself to an insurance company. The insurance company sells you the service as a policyholder of indemnifying you and your stuff, and also in an ANCAP system, physically protecting you and your stuff, like a 911 style dispatch.
My stuff is not my bread, right? The problem is that like I own my stuff, and I understand what you're saying in terms of like the things that I own. But that doesn't.
You gotta let him. You gotta let him finish his. You gotta let him finish his argument.
We're trying to jump 10 steps ahead. Hold on there. Slow down there. Okay. So you have an insurance company that protects and indemnifies you and your stuff. And that insurance company is going to have disputes with other firms in the event of a, somebody commits a crime against you, such as fraud. Now, what is a crime? So let's say I do a bad thing to you. I do something that you hire your insurance company to protect you from, such as I come and beat you up or I steal your stuff, right? You go to your insurance company, say, hey, this guy, Jacob, he did some bad stuff to me. Here's my evidence, right? I go to they want to prosecute me. They want to take my stuff to recompense you and recompense themselves because they paid out a claim to you. But here's the thing. I have my own insurance company that's sworn to protect me. And my insurance company says, well, we don't want you to take his stuff. We're not going to allow it. We have our own soldiers. It's not you can't do that. So the two firms now have a dispute. Now, how do they resolve this dispute? Well, what's the cheap way to resolve it? Cheapest way they can resolve it, most likely, is they bring it before an arbitrator. That's a private court. It's somebody who sells the service of dispute resolution on the market. We already have that system, by the way, in the market. So on the private sector today in America, there is a large industry of private arbitration. Insurance companies have disputes every second of every day, pretty much. And they don't bring those disputes before government courts because the government courts, they're very slow, it's very expensive, they don't like to do it. So they bring their disputes before institutions like the American Arbitration Association or the Mediation Center, a bunch of other private courts that sell the service of adjudication. So in an ANCAP system, that's the entire court system. So you have private courts that are in the business of selling judicial adjudication, and then the enforcement is handled by the plaintiff firm, or I shouldn't say the plaintiff firm, the firm whose outcome is the firm who gets the winning outcome. And what makes sure that that firm will be able to enforce the outcome against the other one, it's an elaborate series of contractual relationships in which you have mutual backup contract networks that are contingent on judicial amenability. you also have the discipline of constant dealings. The fact that each company knows that if I don't get the outcome I want in court, and so I don't go along with it, then the next time the other company, the next time I win a case against that company, they're not going to go along with the outcome, and we're back to having to fight each other or otherwise much more expensive issues, big problems. So anyway, back to the bread tape.
You genuinely like I'm so you genuinely want a system of small private courts who have negotiations and relationships. Like, I'm sorry, do you not think that this will result in some kind of like struggle for power or like mutual like conversations behind the bar where it's like, oh, I'll do this. Like, I'm putting a pin in that because like, holy fucking weasels.
Any state will have corruption, but I think
there's absolutely no like there's no bad behavior that would go on in that system. Yeah, absolutely not. And I want to go back to I buy a loaf of bread that's like full of sawdust that's produced by like big company X, and your response is like, well, you can bring it to the private courts that have relationships with other private courts, where in which the system is now judged by people who have positions of power within the private courts, and nobody's going to abuse that because they're all mutually related to each other, because that's so dissimilar to like any kind of like corporate business or like capitalistic system. That's fucking insane, dude. You're replacing X for Y. Like, what are you doing?
It's highly capitalistic. We want it capitalistic. We think capitalism is a good thing, especially for industries like law. So compared to a scenario,
capitalist, yeah, I've got that. I picked that up real quick. Okay, so like, what's protecting me as a consumer? Right. So my only protection as a consumer is to sue within this legal system where in which you've built a system of power. Right. That's why I'm pointing that out. That's why I pointed that out, because like you're replacing X with like, so nothing has changed in terms of like systems of corporate structures of power, because now it's going to be these weird legal courts that you've set up that are completely devoid of any kind of like federal rules or law. Where are the laws coming from? They're just based on what vibes? Like what's the rule? Right, because you're suggesting courts based on what?
You keep
anarcho-capitalist. Right, so you want courts based on
without letting me answer. You keep not letting me answer any of your questions.
I was going on a rant because I was trying to talk as long. Like, what are you doing? Like
reputational assets. Companies have the incentive to build a reputation.
I don't even remember what they were.
Tom, your microphone is very low.
Okay.
Hey, Fuckers, just real quick, as a constant interrupter, we can do better, can't we?
Okay. The very first question I remember hearing was the question of corruption. I think private capitalistic courts are nowhere near as prone to corruption as government courts are. Why? Because government courts have a monopoly. They have a legislative monopoly, and then in the courts themselves, they have a judiciary monopoly. If a court is taking bribes, it doesn't actually hurt the court. They might throw that judge under the bus as some kind of sacrificial lamb if he gets caught, but having rulings that don't smell right, having rulings that people don't like, doesn't cost the court any business because they're funded with taxes. They don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, whereas judges on judges is never happens.
If a private court, on the other hand, is issuing rulings on cases and those rulings don't smell right to the consuming public, then that court steers away potential disputants who would otherwise be hiring that court. They tarnish their professional reputation as a neutral adjudicator.
Do you know how long it took for Pamela Price to be kicked out of Alameda County? Like,
I want courts to be a business, yes.
Are you also talking about DAs?
Insane. That's the same argument that people make when they're like, "Oh, like schools should be a business." Like,
schools should be a business too.
Right? So if the court doesn't give the thing you want, you go to a different court. That's the exact opposite of what a court should be.
No.
Oh my God.
No, wait. That doesn't mean that you just infinitely adjudicate until you get the outcome you want from a different court.
Exactly.
That's exactly what that. I'm sorry. Are you blind to like what the consequences of what that system would be? Like that's what would happen. You don't get the outcome you want. You go to the court that like that
outcome is happy. The outcome is binding. The outcome gets enforced. It is binding. You can't just take it to a different court.
Okay, fine. So right. So okay. So I'm sorry. So you end up in the courts being paid by whom? Right. So like what exactly is funding this?
It's bound by our privatized pinky promises. That's what it's.
Yeah. Introduce a solution. One solution for
I have not heard
every
a single
three complaints.
constructual argument that like makes sense to this. You can say that I'm talking over as much as you want, but like this is full on insanity.
No, I get it. I agree.
Me and you have to answer your question. Me and you have a dispute. Me and you pay the court to adjudicate the dispute. That's already how it works in private arbitration. I've been to private arbitration before.
Yeah, but you know what, honey, you know what you're giving me is like somebody hurt you vibes. Like you went to private arbitration. Private arbitration is not like what are you like? This is such an irrational argument.
That's a terrible argument.
It doesn't matter if it's a terrible argument.
You're making absolute nonsense of an argument. Like there are ways that I could construct.
You haven't made a single argument against his argument. All you're just saying is that he's dumb. Who hurt you? These are dumb arguments.
Yeah,
right. Yep, that's
no
great. Yep, you know what? And I'm perfectly happy to sit on that pillow because
because you don't have an argument.
Genuinely, right? Maybe okay. So let me take a step back. Maybe I'm wrong. So you want private courts that are what, privately funded?
Do you feel nice that the guys use kid gloves with you?
But they already exist, Fox. Private arbitration already exists.
Is it Fox?
Yeah, they do have private arbitration in the real world.
Yeah, private arbitration is right. I understand there are problems with our legal system. If you want to make a claim that like private arbitration is a problem, but that's not what you're doing. You're saying that private arbitration should be the only thing that exists.
Then why should we have private grocery stores? What I mean.
Why not make it all government?
Why not make everything government?
No. Hang on. You have to take 2 steps back there. If you have an issue with private grocery stores, you need to take 2 steps back.
No issue.
To understand
but people could die if there's sawdust in their food.
You are picking on a specific part of
Are you
me.
guys curious about the Mondani thing about in New York with the grocery stores? Do you think that's gonna happen?
Can you let her? Can you stop interrupting, Travis? Can you stop interrupting?
I'm trying to change the.
Now
please change it. Please change the subject. Are you talking about the grocery stores?
So basically, you're saying that all private business is bad, and we should force all.
Did she say that? I don't think she said that.
Much.
I didn't say that. No,
because she can't imagine. She can't imagine a private business working in one sector of the economy, but.
No,
this section of the economy. My God!
I absolutely.
Don't be slippery.
I love that extraordinary leap that you made from the things that I said.
So you're saying basically it's impossible for somebody to pay somebody to arbitrate over a case, even though we have in the world, even though we've had it, even though
I actually acknowledge that.
Can you stop interrupting? Why do you keep interrupting? God damn! I can imagine. Oh my God!
Stupid shit.
I couldn't imagine somebody burying you.
Oh wow!
So the first thing you say.
That's not a way of debating. Relax.
So it's okay when she does it, but if I make a joke, I'm an asshole, right? Okay. You're such a white knight, bro. You are the biggest white knight I've ever seen in my life.
Cry me a river, dude. Cry me a river. Yeah, the first thing you said was like totally misrepresenting what you said, and now you want to like backtrack on it and be like, "Oh, it was a joke. It was a joke." Oh.
What was it? What I never said anything. It was a joke.
You just said, bro. When I called you out, I said you were misrepresenting what she was saying. She's not. It's impossible to arbitrate via.
Well, that's what she was making it seem
private
like.
means. No, bro.
Dude,
then you weren't listening.
Speak for yourself. Just like stop.
No, I mean, you're the one getting upset, but I don't hear really argument against what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, I'm so upset, dude. I'm so fucking upset right now.
Okay, so my only argument is that you're basically making it seem like, oh my God, having private arbitration is just going to lead to such terrible outcomes. So it must be put to the state. though. It's just like, okay, well, why can't we do that with grocery stores?
Absolutely. I'm sorry, you made 3 leaps that are like insanely bizarre. Number one, my entire point was like, I acknowledge that private arbitration exists. I don't want that to become the entirety of our judicial system in terms of like
so kind of like grocery stores. Right. Do you want the whole grocery store, sector of the economy to be run by private, greedy private business owners?
Hang on, stop, everybody stop. What's your grocery store argument? How do we get from arbitration to grocery stores?
Because you that's both are
and jump there.
Both are services provided on the market that could either be run by the state or a private business.
Do you not remember like about 8 minutes ago before you like lost your shit, where I was like, hey,
I feel fine.
Let's take 2 steps back and think about these structural systems that provide the economic structure for the world in which we live, right? So when we talk about these things, it's important to understand like the context in which we exist, because these things don't exist in isolation. The reason I called him out for being like, meow, 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 maybe you got hurt by something, is because he was clearly latching onto one idea. And the problem with the economy or economics in general, the reason that getting an economics degree, I can speak to that, is difficult, is because it's a very complex thing. It's not a science. These are ideas that exist in the meta.
I haven't heard one single argument against what I said.
Right. So what's your argument about grocery stores?
So you weren't listening. So you weren't listening.
No, you didn't make an argument about grocery stores.
I did make an argument.
You just said the word grocery stores.
I didn't. So I only said grocery stores. Damn, you must have really not been listening.
Honey, sweetie, baby, you're
honey, listen closely.
Give me your argument about grocery stores, and we'll start from there.
Okay, listen, honey, listen. Don't call me honey, all right? I'm not your honey.
Yeah, okay, I know you're trying so hard to keep some maintenance of self-respect, but let's go.
I'm so sorry. So I'm merely saying that in private businesses in the arbitration and the sector of arbitration works in the real world, and you're acting as if it would be a disaster if we replace the current public system, one that is funded through taxation, which is theft, the forceful extraction of wealth from innocent people, and as opposed to having that, we privatize it where there's voluntary transactions in the market. You're acting like that's, oh my god, that's like such a terrible thing, it's just gonna end in such a disaster. So my response to that is just like, okay, well, if it would be such a disaster in that sector of the economy, well, why couldn't it be a disaster in this sector of the economy? Why couldn't we just be like, hey, let's have the state control all grocery stores, and then there won't be any more disasters?
Hang on. I genuinely like this is something I'm like genuinely interested in, and I have a background in. So I want to understand your argument, and I don't quite right now, and I apologize because maybe I'm just being stupid, and maybe I am just stupid. But so you're
can try to reiterate.
I don't think you're stupid.
Right. If somebody can say it sideways to me, but like I'm asking, so you're saying like, if the question is like, there's an individual concern about the control of goods, therefore.
Tom, you're making her microphone.
Oh, sorry. It's just I wanted to say something.
Oh,
you could say something if you want to. I just hear an echo. That's all.
I don't quite understand. So you're saying that like, what's the consideration here? Like, I don't understand the leap between, I as a consumer have an issue with the control of my goods through the grocery store. Like, I understand you want what do you want? You want a decrease in like some kind of like overarching concern in the goods. Therefore, like I have the ability as a consumer to litigate the content of my goods. And that's
one sec. Tom, did you want to respond? I know that you wanted to respond. Tom?
Oh, sorry. Yes. No. I was sorry. Yes. I mean, focus. I hear you. I do have to agree. It's not personal, okay? I don't know you. It's fine. It's just for the sake of conversation. That I mean, you've been doing like your arguments is like that's crazy. I cannot believe you're saying that. maybe it would be better if you address the arguments rather than
that's why I'm trying to ask him now. Like I would like him to kind of like explicitly lay out the arguments, because like,
I feel like
agree.
I did. I don't know if were you not listening?
Like the last person. I'm sorry. There's an echo here, and I'm not sure who it's coming from. But like, I genuinely, I just want to understand.
I feel like I did make the argument. I just think you weren't.
No,
really.
and so that's why and maybe I'm stupid for misunderstanding. But if you could just lay it out in a thesis statement way.
Listen. Okay, just listen to very, very carefully. Okay, you do understand the difference between public and private, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, you understand that public services are funded through taxation, right?
Yes.
Taxation is theft, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. I
yes. Okay. Moving on.
Yes.
So, if you have a private business? If you had the choice between a private business and a public firm, a private firm or a public firm, I would assume you would choose the private firm, right?
That's an assumption, but like let's accept
well, I'm asking you.
Are you asking me?
Yes.
It's weird to call it a firm. You just mean a
right.
Well, you know what you know what I'm trying to say. I didn't use the right word, but you know what I mean.
Right, but like I don't know what we're talking about because there are things that I believe that are served by being a private firm.
Yeah, I honestly think like you kind of stupid, not respectfully.
Yeah, we disagree. Like, yeah, honey, hi, surprise. We disagree on some things like functionally here. Like, yeah.
Like I'm trying really hard, but you're not listening to me at all. You're not.
Don't debate.
Did you hear the part where she called you honey? I think she got you, bro.
Yeah. Oh my god. It's like talking to me like I'm like she's my mother. Like.
Okay, I can like. What do you want me to say? Like, bro, dude. Like that's just how I talk.
I just want you to listen to what I was saying, and as opposed to just chiming in every 5 seconds.
I can try to put into different terms what I
asked me. No, I'm sorry. You asked me a question. That's how we respond. That's just how I talk. I was not trying to be
it was a simple yes or no question, but whatever. Just go back to taxation.
Question, and I responded.
All right.
Okay, I believe that what Sithis was trying to ask with the grocery thing is essentially, do you consider it problematic that the grocery industry is, generally speaking, entirely private? That market forces decide what food will be on the shelf at the grocery store and where the stores will be placed, and many other questions that go into the production of grocery stores. These things are decided by the market based on what people choose to buy. And I believe the nature of this question is, do you consider it a problem that it's the market doing that rather than the government?
The government, I struggle with this. I'm sorry, but like I don't have a clean answer. Like my genuine answer here is I don't know, because I don't believe that I don't believe that one or the other is the correct response. I believe that there's a certain measure of regulation. I don't want sawdust in my bread. I want there to be some measure of like government regulation. However, I don't believe that like a pure free market economy is going to be the answer to getting me the best price or the best like access to bread. I'm split. I'm sorry. It's not an answer.
You mentioned having a background in economics. Are you familiar with the economic calculation problem?
Yes.
Could you describe the economic calculation problem?
I'm not gonna play this fucking game, dude. Like seriously, like we're not. Like I'm so fucking over this at this point. You're yelling at me and like being like you're all being fucking ass weasels.
I'm guessing that's a no.
Why would I? Why?
Like
I don't think that's a ridiculous question to ask. It's merely a.
Wait, Sithis, do you even know about the thing? I don't think you're very educated, Mr. Sith.
You think I don't know what the economic calculation problem? I made a 20-minute YouTube video on it.
Did you actually?
Yes.
Yes, you did.
Do you know what the economic calculation problem is?
Yeah, I watched your video. I'm an expert.
Oh, so why would you ask me that?
You forgot.
I forgot.
Okay.
Wait, so what do you mean by taxation is theft?
That's kind of very separate from everything we were talking about before, but
we would premise 5. Wasn't it premise 5?
Right. It's
theft is where
I'm sorry, you're jumping around. Like I got into this conversation because I was talking about something completely different, and I'm not going to be like cornered in and like I don't care enough. I honestly just don't.
Okay, then why
care.
are you here? Just shut up, please.
Fine, I'll leave.
Thank you.
I was asked why is taxation theft. I put the term. We use the term theft to describe a situation. Hey, Tom, you're.
I'm just like hearing double. I don't know if your
Tom, yeah,
microphone's
your mic. Just mute yourself when you're not talking.
Anyway,
yeah, it's just I mute and I want to talk, and then someone starts talking, and I have to stop and mute myself. Okay.
Just let me. Just let me know when you want to say something, and I'll give you time.
Just do push to talk or something.
Yeah, or push to talk.
We use the term theft to describe a situation where you're taking the property of an innocent against their will. And in the case of every single tax, you are in fact taking the property, the state is taking the property of an innocent, i.e. taking the money of a citizen by force, against their will.
Would George Floyd be like a theft? Like they stole his life? Would that be fair?
I would just call that murder. It's a little wonky and awkward to try to call it murder theft. So generally speaking, that's not
just murder. I would say.
Was that theft?
I don't know about the ICE thing. I assume they murder people.
Is self-defense an argument? Is self-defense like a defense against theft too? Like, can I thieve in self-defense?
What is this like? What?
You can stop people from stealing from you. I mean, if I come and, I'm shoplifting from your store, you can stop me. If I try to run out with your merchandise, you can chase after me and tackle me and take.
Like, so imagine I grab someone's gun and they're like, "Hey, you stole my gun," and I'd be like, "Hold on, gamer, that was self-defense. I was taking it out of your hands because you were going to shoot me. Can I do that?"
I think if I'm trying to shoot you, then it would not be stealing for you to take my gun.
But would it be theft?
Depending on what?
No,
would it be theft?
Stealing is
Notice,
theft.
I qualified my definition of theft by characterizing it as taking the property of an innocent against their will. And presumably, if I'm trying to shoot you and I'm not defending against you, if I'm trying to murder you with my gun, then it would not be stealing for you to take my gun away, as I am not an innocent.
It causal necessity.
I don't understand the nature of the question.
Like, if you're trying to shoot me, instead of grabbing your gun, can I grab something else you own? Like, imagine you have your phone. Can I pickpocket you because you're going to shoot me? Is that theft?
I think if I'm trying to shoot you, I've ceded my rights. You can shoot me in the face.
So if you're trying to shoot me, I can take your phone.
I guess hypothetically, sure. That.
Despite the fact that there's no causal nexus between the phone and the threat.
You could call that a form of restitution in that case. In the case of taking the gun, it would be self-defense. But in the case of taking the phone, it would be kind of restitution in the moment, which is very rare, but I guess could happen sometimes.
When you say innocent, does that include cheating on your wife?
Yes. No. I'm just kidding. No. It's not an aggression.
I'm just trying to understand,
on your wife,
in your view, if your wife cheats on you, you can steal her phone. Is that what you're saying?
No.
No, cheating on a spouse is a horrible thing to do, but it doesn't violate somebody's rights. It's not an act of aggression.
Ratify. It must be some sort of initiation of force done by another person to another person. And cheating is not. We would not consider that to be an aggression. Although it's kind of messed up to do something.
She owns herself. That's the fucked up thing. Most horrible things are not acts of aggression. Yeah. You can walk up to a little fat girl and say, "Hey, you're a little fat girl. You should kill yourself. Nobody's ever going to love you."
If I shoot a fake gun at you, does that change the analysis? Or aim a fake gun at you. I train it on your head. I put it against your rib cage. You think it's a real gun, but it's not. Is it still theft for you to steal my phone? It's a fake gun, but it's a real perception of danger.
I guess that would depend. Well, first of all, it was never self-defense to steal the phone, to take the phone. It was that was restitution in the moment. Taking the gun would be self-defense. Now, in the case
does
of
this restitution turn on the objective facts, or
what?
Like, if I think it's a gun, and so I do my restitution and I take your phone, but actually it was a paper gun, it was a toy gun, does that change the restitution aspect?
I think if I point a toy gun at you, I have not committed an act of aggression. However, if I've clearly threatened you with the toy gun, you believing it to be a real gun, you using force in response would not be an act of aggression. That would be self-defense. But taking my phone,
I actually haven't violated any of your rights. I've just aimed a plastic gun at you.
You've made a threat of violating my right to self-ownership. That is to shoot me.
But that's also so
I'm clear.
It's not just violations of rights; it's threats to violate. Is that right?
Well, yeah, but you can that's like saying a person who runs into a store with a fake gun isn't robbing the place because they have a fake gun. Well, it's just like, yeah, but you're making it seem like you have a real gun. You're displaying that it's a real gun. So like you're gonna treat you accordingly.
It's based on the threat.
Gotcha.
The threat of force might have been a bluff, but that's not the concern of the victim to discriminate about.
Yeah, I mean,
to try to figure out.
So if somebody on Discord messages you, "Hey, I think your girlfriend's very pretty. I'm gonna steal her car." At that point, you're justified in shooting the guy, or like, how does that work?
I wouldn't say shoot
you
the
can't
guy.
shoot.
I mean, you could try to stop him from taking the car.
That would be
like,
grossly
it would be a form of theft
disproportionate.
to say that you're gonna steal someone's. Like, if I went to you and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna steal your girlfriend's car," that would be theft, right?
You can't execute people for stealing, though.
But it would be theft, right? If I told you, like, "Hey,
how would it be theft if you? That's not what theft is.
Well, if
it would be a threat.
Steal your woman, that would be theft.
It would be a threat of theft, but it wouldn't actually be theft.
Your woman is not your property.
And you could like you could take my phone as restitution if I threatened to steal your woman. Is that right?
No.
That doesn't follow.
Your wallet? Are you saying wallet or woman? Are you saying wallet or woman?
Does it matter?
Well, because
yes,
a woman,
it matters. Your
woman is a self-owner. So, I'm actually a huge feminist. Okay.
I don't know how you would be entitled to the phone.
Like, is a marriage a tangible asset?
A marriage is just a promise.
You do not own your spouse.
Yeah, you don't own your wife.
But can you sell a marriage?
If you want,
what are you, Andrew Tate?
If you want, you could enter into a for pay contract marriage. Sure, you can have a mail order bride.
Yeah,
that doesn't mean you own.
Forcious interference in my for pay contract if I threaten to steal your woman.
I'm not party to your contract. I'm not responsible for abiding by your contract.
Forcious interference, not breach.
It's okay to violate somebody else's contract that you're not a party to.
You don't believe in tortious interference?
For instance, if you hire a contractor to build you a fence tomorrow, you pay him today to come build it tomorrow, and then I convince the contractor to instead come to my raging house party, I have interfered, but I've not breached any contract, and I'm not liable for anything.
But you would be liable, just not under breach, under interference.
Yeah, it's interference. Now, if I shoot the contract.
All right, if I recommended you a book, would you read it?
If I'm using aggression
would you read it?
Yes.
If I'm using aggression to interfere in the contract, that's a separate matter. For example, if I shoot the contractor, you have a claim. If I shot the contractor, you have a claim. But if I simply invited him to my raging party, and so he skipped the job at your house in order to come to my party, you do not have a claim against me. You have a claim against the contractor, and I'm innocent of anything.
You just don't like the common law, unfortunate. Bozo.
Well, we are not. We believe in libertarian law, not common law.
Yeah. I want to know what the argument is that taxation is theft.
That's a good point. Good question.
I answered that earlier, but sure. We use the term theft to describe a situation where you are taking the property of an innocent against their will. In the case of every single tax, the government is taking the money, the property, of a citizen, an innocent, using a threat of force, i.e. against their will. Thus, every tax is theft.
Well, I don't think that it's against your will, per se. I think you're voluntarily entering into an agreement with the state anytime you engage. Sorry, can I finish the point?
Yeah, let him go.
Anytime you enter into a legal arrangement, for example, starting a business, owning property, whenever you get into a relationship vis-a-vis like employer-employee relationship, I think those are all within the legal order, right? And if you were to work outside of that, you wouldn't be paying taxes, but you wouldn't be in those specific types of arrangements, like at least not in any enforceable like standard.
The problem with that, one of several problems with that, is that the state mandates involvement of the state in such arrangements. If, for example, I just go find some natural land and I build a house on it, ethically speaking, as I see it, I've done nothing wrong and that's legitimately my house. But the state would not allow that. The state would not recognize that claim. The building department would have something to say about it. They would call me a trespasser on government land. They would forcibly intervene if I don't get the blessing of the state to exercise my rights.
What makes it your land, though?
I built a house there, and it was natural land before that. That means it was unowned. I have the right to do that.
Well, so what? I mean, if I go build, like, let's say somebody owns, 5 acres, and on one of those acres, I go and I build a house. I just don't recognize their,
that's someone else's land.
Their stake. Yeah, but I don't recognize. Hold on. In the same way that you don't recognize the government's stake on, say, some piece of land out there.
Does the government
wherever,
own it?
I don't recognize John Smith's stake on these 5 acres where he hasn't developed anything.
If there's no development there, then it's not his property, and it's perfectly fine for you to go build a house there. Legally speaking, I own 6 acres of land. Legally speaking, I don't care what the legal order says. That's just the government. Legally speaking, I own 6 acres of land. It's mostly natural forest. If you came and built a house on the corner of what the government considers my forest, then you will not have violated my rights because I don't truly own it. I only own it in the eyes of the government, but I don't rightly own it.
Yeah, but we're talking about whether or not taxation is theft. And your argument is, but if I go out and I build something on a piece of land, right, and I don't pay any taxes on it, well then, like, I should just be free to do that. But I'm saying, like, in the same way that I'm not going to, like, recognize, John Smith's stake to undeveloped piece of land, even though in the legal order, it is his stake of land, right? You're not going to recognize, and he could verily impose sort of like enforcement on his stake of land, right, upon me. The government can impose vis-a-vis the interests of like people's wanting to be in that order, right? Their stake on the undeveloped piece of land that you decide to go put your stake on.
What is their stake?
In both
their interest in maintaining the order that preserves their private property rights.
In both the case of John and in the case of government, neither one of them is entitled to stop you from developing nature. They don't own nature.
If he owns the undeveloped land vis-a-vis a contract upheld by the government, yes, he does.
He doesn't
prevent you. Yes, he does.
I don't care.
I don't care what he doesn't. But like the reality is, he has the ability to petition the government to stop you, right?
Who cares?
And the government would be using. The government would be using. Yes, that's the government.
Okay,
they would be using
the government, and you go try to pull your squirrely shit, right, and see how that works out for you. And I will be on the other side. I will be on the other side supporting them in like.
Yeah, you'll be on the side of the fucking Nazis, fucking idiot.
Oh yeah, you are retarded. Nazis, that's what they are.
Yes, because you're just saying the government dictates the truth. I listen to the government.
No, is
Who
that what I
cares
said?
about what's
Did I
right and
say?
wrong?
Did I
That's what
say
you're
the
saying.
government dictates the truth?
Yes.
What I
yes.
said was the people have an interest in preserving their rights, their
Who's
property
the people?
rights. The
What's
people,
the people?
the people of a given community, the people of a state, the people of the nation.
Can you point them out
right?
to me?
They have
The individuals involved.
Yeah, the voters.
The specific individuals involved in the contractual arrangements you seem to be speaking.
Yeah,
of
the people who vote, right? That's 60% of people vote in national.
And they're somehow
elections,
coming to
for
magically
example.
own this random land in the middle of like Nebraska.
They don't. No. That's not what's being said. The way in which that property is upkept by the government is not that they own it in a private sense, right? It's reserved for someone who, say, wants to buy that land or whatever other legal, arrangement is going to be provided for, like zoning or something like that. It's reserved for those purposes, right? Or maybe it's turned into a national park or whatever the interests of, say, the people at large collectively comes to be, or through other political machinations. That's what's going to be done with that land, right? And for you and I who live in houses or apartments or whatever, we have an interest in making sure that our rights as tenants or as landowners or as people who live in houses or buy houses, that those contractual agreements be upheld by some enforceable standards strong enough that nobody could just run roughshod over you.
I got a question. Let's say that the state just randomly and everybody in society just voted to take your house from you and give it to somebody else. Would that just make it okay under your eyes because everybody voted for it and that's what the state says?
Nope.
Okay, so then it seems like you're not really following that standard that you just laid out.
So I would go further. I would go further on the fact that I do believe in like certain constitutional rights, and I think that the fair compensation is one of those things that should be upheld as well. So if someone,
yeah, but why should they care? Why should they care? It's the state doing it.
It's the state. So the reason that I would hold the standard for, say, democratic processes in a constitutional context is because I think it's the best method by which we can sort of resolve a lot of these issues about property and disagreements between people.
Okay, I want to, before we get too far away from it, I want to address an earlier point. The earlier point that I heard was along the lines of the premise that a piece of land, natural land, undeveloped land, it is given to the government. The government has a claim to it that's legitimized by the voters. But for that to be true, the voters would have to have some legitimate claim to it. And I don't see any basis for that. I don't see any reason to say that the collective voters or the collective Americans or whatever has any claim whatsoever to some piece of land that not a single one of them has developed. Whereas if I I myself do develop it, now I do have a basis for a claim to that land. So I think the entire concept of national land claims held collectively, as well as the concept by extension of governmental jurisdiction, is entirely unfounded and illegitimate.
Yeah, just because the government says that you're the owner of a land doesn't make it yours. We have to have some theory of property rights to determine who's the owner of something. It shouldn't just be, oh, the government says so.
The principal can never have less rights than the agent. That is, if somebody is doing something on your behalf, for them to have a right to do that, you would have to have the right to do it. For instance, if I don't have the right to murder you, then it would be equally wrong for me to hire a hitman to murder you on my behalf. Likewise, if I do not own a piece of land, then it would be completely illegitimate for me to vote for this politician to decide what happens with that land, just as I cannot myself decide what happens with that land. Therefore, the people collectively are not able to give the government some right to said piece of land because it doesn't belong to the people. It belongs to, if I go build something there, it belongs to me. It never belonged to the people in the first place for them to give it to the government. That would equally apply to other things that are claimed supposed rights of the government, such as regulating what I can and cannot, put into my own body, or that I'm not allowed to engage in.
That's why we need to legalize all drugs and prostitution.
Or that
sorry, I'm
back.
I got a phone call in the middle of when I was talking.
Mirror.
Yeah, I mean,
okay.
I don't think there's like I don't think there's like a state of nature that's like ownership or something like that, right? I think it's obviously like a social arrangement between people, and I think the best method for utilizing such social arrangements is basically through a constitutional republic.
You think it's arbitrary?
In the way that we do it. What do you mean arbitrary?
Okay, if you want
like the standard ownership, just whatever.
No.
If you want to, hold on. We clearly, I don't think we have a moralist. I don't think we have a moralist in our midst, so I don't think moralist arguments are going to resonate very much with this guy. You made the case, or didn't make the case, but you made the claim that, or at least the assertion, the personal viewpoint, that we need some way to adjudicate who owns what. We need some construct of property rights and some institutional enforcement and upholding of property rights, a premise I thoroughly agree with, by the way. But you find the best way to do that to be through a constitutional republic, a form of government, which I disagree strongly with that point for several reasons. Number one, a constitutional republic. I'm just going to say a government because, the Nazi government was a constitutional republic. The North Korea is a constitutional republic. China is a constitutional republic. The Soviet Union was a constitutional republic. There's nothing actually special about constitutional republics in terms of like limitation of government or anything like that. But a constitutional republic is not immune to the laws of economics. They are not able to allocate resources and make decisions in proportion to what people most urgently want and need. And the reason for that is because they're not having on the supply side of their inputs factor prices, and then on the demand side, the consumers of what they're providing, sales metrics. So they're not able to perform calculations such to actually guide them in what decisions do they need to be making and what allocations do they need to be making. In
constitutional
the case
republics
of law,
constitutional republics would be neutral to whatever like market economics develop, and also the point about no, it's not a problem. That's actually like a strength. Problem. It's actually no, it's not an enormous problem. It's a strength that these governments have because they can adapt to like the changing environments of markets. But I think there was a cheap shot in there about like North Korea is a constitutional republic and Iran or whatever other countries you're throwing in there. And it's like, okay, they can call themselves constitutional republics. They are not constitutional republics in function. They are dictatorships. And that's just like obvious. What?
The Weimar Republic would, I think, by everybody's definition, have constituted a constitutional republic. That's what became Nazi Germany. The Nazis were elected to power in a constitutional republic.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, like, you're not going to find disagreement on some of those things, right? So, like, I do think that, like, so when I say it's the best method, I'm not saying it's, like, perfect. I'm not saying it's, like, foolproof. I don't think there's any like foolproof method.
It's better than the alternatives. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, basically. I mean, more or less. But I don't think that introducing other countries like North Korea, where there's like full-on military dictatorships, is going to be, relevant to like Nazi Germany would probably be the best example. But
I wasn't trying to take the cheap shot of saying, look, these tyrannical states are constitutional republics, therefore that means constitutional republics are bad. All I was trying to do is undermine the reverence that people sometimes have when they say constitutional republic, as if there's something sacrosanct or magical about that.
I don't think that it's sacrosanct. I don't think it's magical. I just think the practical reality is that we don't live in a world that's conducive to the market being the thing that dictates our governance.
It should be
not conducive to it, and that's not the paradigm that we live in, unfortunately. But if that were the paradigm that we live in, then we would find legal decisions being made in accordance with what people most urgently need. something that government is not even conceivably capable of, because government does not have the crucial input, the feedback mechanism of sales metrics. For instance, if the government passes a law that says everybody is not allowed to wear blue jeans anymore, and they're going to invest a budget of of $50 billion per year per state into enforcing this, then you have a gross misallocation of resources. You have millions of people being incarcerated, a huge black market in blue jeans. You've created tremendous problems. You're damaging people's lives substantially, tearing families apart, untold horror and destruction. And the economic benefit that you're getting out of that is a very concentrated one. You have, no doubt, the blue jeans cartels will arise, and you have profiteers within the prison sector and the police union sector and the guard sector and political beneficiaries and so on. But generally speaking, for the people at large, it represents a massive loss. And it sounds silly when we apply it to blue jeans, but the government does exactly this on many other accounts, such as most famously drugs. This is what happens when you divorce law from market forces. It no longer represents economic efficiency, and it no longer represents allocation based on what people most urgently actually need and what people are willing to spend their money. I am willing to spend my money for protection against burglary and to protect my child against child molestation and things of that such nature. I'm not willing to spend my money to lock you up for having a certain plant or for uttering certain words or for collecting rainwater at your house or something. But and on the market, on a free market, I would get to make that decision for myself, what I'm willing to hire firms to do on my behalf. That is to say, what rights of mine I can and will get them to enforce. And that will chiefly be things that are practical to enforce for me, such as protection of life and property. But democracy doesn't work that way. Democracy asks on a ballot, what do you want to make everybody else pay for? Not what are you willing to purchase? So through this externalization of cost, you have a complete disjunction between service and payment, such that the service does not reflect what people are actually willing to pay for and what people want. And accordingly, government is the worst possible model for the provision of any service, including and especially the service of law.
Okay, sorry, it's hard to know exactly where to start on a lot of what you're saying, because it's sort of like a preachy monologue, and it's
Sure.
not like this. It's like, I think that a lot of the things that you're saying are basically going to come down to the fact that there isn't much evidence to say that a market is going to be more conducive to better governance than say the current constitutional republic that is the United States, for example. In fact, I think there's a lot of reasons. I think there's a lot of reasons. I think, sorry, man, come on. You went on for a long time, and I was very patient about that. Okay. I think there's a lot of reason to say, and we can get into some of those reasons, but I think there's a lot of reasons to say, first of all, conceptually, and second of all, on the ground reality facts situation, that the constitutional republic and the ability for people to participate in governance is a superior form, especially over markets. It's like, for example, someone was talking about grocery stores and courts, right? Like, what makes those things meaningfully different, such that one should be taken care of by the market versus one should be doled out by a constitutional republic or democracy or whatever. And in the case of courts, it's not strictly a democratic practice, right? It is there's a monopoly, well, sort of a duopoly if you consider Article 3 and Article 1 courts different. But there's also courts that, as you pointed out, exist in the private sphere. And I think that that's a superior form than strictly government or strictly market form courts, right? Where you have the choice between the two. But I think the background of having a supreme authority is what makes those both effective forms of adjudication, right? But when it comes to like services like the grocery store, I just think that it's borne out that it has been tried in governments to sort of publicly maintain grocery stores, and services like that don't function as effectively under public maintenance that they do under private maintenance. And I'm fine with that. Like, so long as it's borne out by evidence, right? Which one's going to be more effective? Which one's going to like conduce to better results for people? Then, like, letting the private market deal with groceries, like, although in a realm of like nutritional facts and the scientific committees being sort of maintained by a higher form of authority, I think that all kind of like makes it a little bit better, right, than just like one way or the other. I think having a mix is like probably the best path.
Either capitalism is better at providing services efficiently in maximizing the satisfaction of consumer demand and minimizing cost, or socialism is. And I think the laws of economics that make the private sector better at the production of food also make the private sector better at production of law. I described a moment ago some of the reason for that. Now, I heard within what you said a couple of times, essentially it appeals to empiricism. And I heard kind of a slipped-in assumption that that there just isn't empiricism to tell us either way about can the private market handle law. Except it's been done. So you could make the case for the American current society that yes, there is a private arbitration market, but there's also the government, and the government offers a degree of enforcement and oversight and such. So let's not talk about current America. There have been historical societies before where they had legal systems that were entirely private, societies that didn't have a government. And so instead, the market handled law. Did you know that, first of all?
Well, I can imagine that like such situations have come about, even like to scale, but I think that what has borne out in the overall case globally for the most developed and wealthiest nations is that constitutional republics and those that, you know, prefer to adjudicate vis-a-vis the government are the ones that win out, right? And that's why I think that they're like, you know, the superior form.
Well, that sounds like you're making the appeal to popularity, making the case that because this is more popular, this is more widespread, it's practiced in more places, that implies that it's better.
No, not that it's popular. It's not about it being popular. It's about it being successful, right? The most successful form of government, or the most successful form of political economic arrangements, right? And especially particularly when we're talking about like adjudication, that is the most successful form of adjudication is through vis-a-vis the government, or vis-a-vis a mixed government / like private, where the government is like the superior form.
Okay, if not popularity and prevalence, then in what way does, say, the United States legal system outperform historical private legal systems?
Because we're the most powerful and economically successful nation on the planet.
Why is this inherently the doing of the legal system, as opposed
with an effectively uniform and stable law, right? By which everybody has not only like maintained contractual agreements between one another that are more often than not upheld, but in various cases are not upheld, right? But when they're not upheld, they are fairly compensated, or you could say, like, if they're not fairly compensated, they're compensated to some degree, right? Fair compensation is sort of like it's a tricky thing to suss out. But regardless, like that's the idea, is like we are, like, you know, in history, we're the most successful and economically prosperous like nation on the planet, and including other developed nations that basically just took on our form of government
because of our court system.
No, not because of our courts, because of our political economic structure, right?
The United States
courts. I don't get that.
The United States. They were talking about private versus public court systems. The United States has more prisoners per capita than any other society in the history of the world.
Mister.
Yeah, that's not really like an
argument.
Against.
It's a weak argument. I'm saying this.
If you are measuring,
how are you teasing apart like everything else from the courts?
If you are measuring success of a legal system by how many people, then Sithis.
Yeah, who's
somebody is rolling and interrupting. I don't know yet. Just keep an eye. I don't know. I was looking at something else. Anyway, I think the United States is the most successful if you are measuring success by how many people it locks up or how many laws get passed and then upheld. I don't think the United States actually has the most laws, but it is up there. There's a very interesting book about that by Harvey Silverblade. It's called 3 Felonies a Day. It's about how the average American commits 3 felonies a day and doesn't even know it. The United States has a massive bloated state. It is the largest and most powerful government in the history of the world, which is able to, on a constant basis, flood prisons with peaceful people, as well as flood foreign countries with bombs. That is to say, flood the homes of peaceful people with actively exploding bombs in other countries and compel.
This is a particularity. This is a particularity of U.S. like government, right? Not every developed nation, floods other countries with like bombs or like locks up their populations or whatever. And even still, that's not like going to be a failure. Like that wouldn't be something that would disambiguate whether or not courts that are maintained by the government or that are upheld by the government are superior or inferior to courts that would be privately like on the political economic.
Right. So we would need a comparison then. So as it happens, in the case of essentially every private legal system that I've studied, they all handle criminal justice through restitution, through restorative justice. So they're not squandering enormous piles of money on locking you up for a crime. Rather, they compel you to pay the victim a substantial portion of resources.
Yeah, but see, that's to me a reason to be suspicious of like letting private or profit-driven organizations run courts, because effectively what you're pointing out is that when for-profit entities maintain, say, like prisons, or they are basically the arbiters of courts and stuff like that, there actually is strong incentive to like lock people up, right? Now, you may point out that like there's some workaround to this, but I think that those workarounds are highly contingent. They're not just like laws of like human behavior or something like that, right? I think laws of human behavior ground more into political power realities than they do like market incentive realities.
So first of all, I have to address what seemed like an implied and highly dubious premise that the government is not for profit. I've actually written an entire chapter about that, making the case that government is 100% for profit. Not just the American government, every government in the history of the world. That's the entire purpose of government, is to profit, is to enrich and empower those who are in control of the government. Of course, that's not how they present it. That's not what they're going to say, because that would make them very unsuccessful. People would be much less tolerant of it if they just said,
guys,
yeah,
I'm gonna head to bed, guys. Have a good night.
All right, you have a nice night.